This is Greg Bledsoe from the Medical Fusion Conference, and I'm here with one of my favorite people, Dr. Setu Mazumdar. And it's been really funny because Setu and I didn't know each other 2 years ago.
Nope.
But I read a couple of his articles in EP Monthly and some of the other things that you'd done, Setu, and really liked what you had to say about financial management. And I thought, man, I really got to get this guy plugged in with what we're doing with Medical Fusion. And one thing led to another. We really hit it off. And Setu was one of our faculty members last year, and we obviously invited him back, and here he is. And Setu, it's great to see you again.
It's good seeing you, Greg.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about what you do. You're an emergency physician, but you do financial management almost full-time now, basically full-time, right?
Right.
And tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll ask you some questions about the conference.
Right. Well, I think that the brief summary of what I do is help other physicians get their financial houses in order and keep them that way.
Yeah.
So it's not just investment management and financial planning. Those are just kind of tools we use to do the ultimate thing, which is getting your financial life in order.
Right.
So I still practice emergency medicine actually in an urgent care setting a couple days a month. All my clients are physicians, but I certainly made a lot of mistakes in the past, and I want to make sure other physicians don't make those same mistakes that I did.
And what's interesting about your story is that you're a normal emergency physician. I mean, you were a normal guy, but you did something really unique that a lot of physicians don't do until much later, is you got serious about your financial management early.
Yeah.
You lived frugally, you saved aggressively, 50% of your income when you were right out of your residency. And tell us about, what did that do for you? Why is that something that's important? Why not just put it off another 10 or 15 years?
I think the short answer to that question is it's probably from my upbringing, where my parents came from India. And we had basically very little money or no money when my dad, who's also a physician, was going through his training. And I think just my upbringing, and actually my wife's upbringing was the same. She's Chinese, and so from our Asian background, we sort of always had in our culture this issue of saving.
Sure.
And from what our families went through after moving to this country, it sort of was embedded in my brain to do it that way. But the other issue was, later on in my emergency medicine career, I realized that, to me personally, financial freedom was far more valuable than buying the next Lexus or the next plasma TV. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with buying those things, but just realize that you can't have it both ways. If you're going to have those items and you're miserable at what you do, then you can't sort of, at the one hand, complain about it either.
That's right.
And so for me and my wife, financial independence was far more valuable and actually priceless compared to buying the next big thing. It's not that we're living in poverty, obviously, by any means, but just taking that action to take control of our lives, and that's what it did for us.
So when people hear this, they have this mental image that you're eating, you're making $200,000, but you're eating ramen noodles, and you've got, it's the middle of the winter, and you've got your heat turned off because you're trying to pinch pennies or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So first of all, that's not true. And then secondly, what's the benefit to you? I mean, so you say financial independence, but now, does that mean that you basically, because when I think of that, I think of a guy that has 15 or 20 million dollars in the bank or whatever. But that's not exactly it. You can be financially independent with less money in the bank. But what that does is that gives you an incredible amount of freedom. You can pick and choose the projects you work on. You can pick and choose the hours that you work. You can walk away from clinical medicine for a time or completely, because you don't have $20,000 every month that you have to cover. Am I right?
Right. Well, let me answer your question a couple ways. When I think of financial freedom and independence, it's not just a number of a portfolio or the amount of assets you have. It's more of like a state of mind, in the sense that, take an example, a concrete example. Let's say you've got $1 million in assets or $1 million investment portfolio.
Yeah.
The next dollar you earn on that portfolio is worth to you a lot less than if you had a $10,000 portfolio.
Right.
So the issue is, when you have enough, the extra dollar doesn't create that much more happiness than it did a while before.
Right.
So what that number is to people, it could be $10 million for some people, it could be $1 million for other people. It's really the state of mind that, how do you really, if your personal expenses are modest. I don't eat ramen noodles or ramen noodles, and I don't live in poverty, and I don't turn the heat off. I turn all those things on, but it's just a matter of saying, it's a matter of saying, well, okay, to get a car as an example.
Yeah.
Okay, so I drive a Hyundai Sonata. It does what it wants to do. It's reliable. It cost me $15,000 a year when I paid for it a couple years back. To me, if I bought a Lexus LS, it's a better car. I want one too. But the extra money is not going to create that much more happiness.
That's right.
So it's really just a state of mind. I'm not saying don't buy the Lexus, just realize that if you're going to buy it, you're going to have to sacrifice something else.
That's right.
What is it that you value? And to me, the value of that state of mind is far more important than those other things.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean you have to skimp out on everything.
Right. Well, and you're hitting on something that's very important. I mean, I've lost track of how many of our colleagues are now in their 30s and their 40s, and they're frustrated.
Yeah.
And you say, well, if you're so frustrated, why don't you dial back your clinical practice a little bit? You know, the emergency physicians, why don't you go down from 20 shifts a month to 10? That probably provide you a little bit of relief. And when you start peeling back the surface, a lot of their frustration is because they feel enslaved.
Right.
And they feel like they're overwhelmed and they can't get off the merry-go-round. It's this roller coaster ride, and they can't get off because they're in this trap. And a lot of it goes back to their ideas of money management. When they got out of the residency and they said, I deserve this, I've sacrificed, and I see their point, but they go out and they buy an expensive home, they buy an expensive car, they join the country club, they put their kids in really expensive private schools, and they take some really, some big vacations, which, okay, I'm not knocking any of those things, those are fun things, but they end up with tremendous debt. And then they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they have no freedom, they have no sanity. And what you're saying is so powerful, because it's basically, I like those things too, but I like my sanity and freedom more. And that's what I like about the advice you give, both at our conference and at online, is that you're showing physicians they don't have to live like that.
Real quick comment on that. Here's the way I look at it. If you had to list, anybody had to list the top 4 or 5 things that are the most important in their lives, I bet you these are the top 4 or 5 for just about everybody. Their health, their family, career, religion for a lot of people, and then money. Now, in no particular order, but the way I look at money is it ties into all those other things.
Absolutely.
By money, I don't just mean the amount of stuff you've got, but if you've got the right financial planning piece in place, then it relates to those other 4 things that are really important to you, and it allows you to do those things that are important in your life. So it's just a tool to allow you to do those other things. It's not the end, it's the means to get to those other things that are important.
That's right.
That's the way.
And it affects it, because if you are living paycheck to paycheck and you're stressed out at work and you're working so much that you can't keep yourself physically strong, that affects your health. You can't see your family, it affects your family relations, your marriage, your kids. If you can't go to your place of worship and have some downtime and spend some time kind of being introspective, that affects your spirituality. All those things are tied, and a lot of it goes back to poor financial decisions.
I agree.
So okay, tell us what makes Lotus unique. What I really like about Lotus is that you align yourself with your clients, and you walk sort of arm in arm with them towards the same goals. It's not you being predatory towards them. And I love this concept, because physicians walk around with big targets on their back. And these financial people take advantage of our ignorance, and they take advantage of the doctor lifestyle, quote unquote. But you've cut through all that, and you're providing a service that's great. Tell us what makes you unique.
I think the couple things that make this unique are, one, the compensation structures. I'm paid directly by the clients. So I don't accept compensation from any other source, no referral
no
fees
commissions?
from anybody, no commissions, no selling of mutual funds or insurance products or anything. That's one issue. There's plenty of fee-only advisors out there, or not plenty, but enough now. But I think the second thing that makes this unique is that I tell the brutal truth. So a lot of times the truth is not what you want to hear. And even a lot of other independent advisors could be objective, but they won't tell you the truth. And part of that truth is things like the following. You are guaranteed, in my opinion, to lose a truckload of money when you invest. And that's going to happen. And there's no way to avoid it. And so you have to face the music, and you have to make sure you're taking on the right amount of risk. Other things are you can't beat the market. So there's lots of independent advisors out there that still claim they can somehow beat the market. That's just not possible. Or if it is possible, the chances are so small it's not worth trying. And then all these other issues like the fees that advisors charge. The brutal truth is a lot of these guys are just charging way too much for things that I honestly don't think they should be charging for. And the other thing is, I think I bring to the table unique insight into what is it like to be a physician, what the challenges they face. Because I made the same mistakes that a lot of people I see making. And I hired a commission-based advisor myself 10 years ago, got ripped off, wasn't getting advice. I was sold products I didn't need. And I was trying to beat the market, and all those things were foolish things that I did, and I want to impart that into not only the clients, but even if somebody doesn't become a client, hopefully they can avoid the same mistakes I did.
And what's your opinion of physicians who want to try to do it on their own? I mean, if you're openly saying, look, your chance of beating the market is slim to none. You're not Warren Buffett, these physicians who, are trying to study it for themselves. And what's your recommendation? I mean, obviously there are people who have an interest in this and they want to try it on their own.
Yeah.
You're not against that,
right.
But you're also saying that there is a place for someone like you. And so tell us about just a second about that.
Yeah. I think I have nothing wrong with somebody trying to do it themselves, but if you're going to do it yourselves, there's 4 key characteristics you have to possess. The first is the interest to do it. You've got to have a passion to read, statistics and investment theory. If you don't have a passion for it, there's no way you can get to the other 3 characteristics, which are, 1, of course, the interest. Second, do you have the time to do it? If you're a physician, you've got a family, you've got a full-time medical practice, where are you going to find the time to do it?
Right.
Then the issue is, do you have the knowledge of market history and all these financial planning laws and issues and deals? But let's say you possess all those 3. Forget about all that. If you're not disciplined to execute a plan, then you're going to ultimately fail, even if you have the interest, knowledge, and time. So if that's the case and you don't possess those 4 characteristics, then you need somebody who's going to do it for you. Let's face it, everybody's got a financial planner.
Right.
It could be yourself, or you could have hired somebody, but everyone's got one.
Right.
And so the real question is, do you do it yourself or do you hire an advisor? And if you've got somebody who's in your best interest, who understands you, usually the fee that they charge is going to be worth the value that you get out of it.
Yeah.
And it should be, because if you don't have the interest, knowledge, time, or discipline, the fee should be worth it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so the last thing is this, is that you're at the Medical Fusion Conference.
Yeah.
And I'm going to openly state here on video that I am coercing you. So
No, you're not coercing me.
What do you think of the conference?
I think the conference is fantastic. Even though I was one of the speakers, I actually learned a ton from the other speakers, from you, from even the participants who weren't speakers.
Absolutely.
I learned from. So I would encourage anybody out there, if you want to really change your lifestyle, get some fantastic ideas to do things outside of clinical medicine, even if you're frustrated or just starting the process of looking elsewhere, this is the place to be. Yeah,
that's great. Well, we appreciate your time, Setu. Always good to see you. Great to have you at the conference. And for those of you who are watching this video and are interested, you can go to Setu's website. It's all over Freelance MD. It's all over our Medical Fusion stuff. And he's given great advice to physicians and really partnering with them. And we appreciate your work, Setu. Thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot, Greg.
All right. Bye.